Just a minute. Yep, we're good.
It says the Dropbox is full, and I can spend $9.99 a month or $16.99 a month.
In the top left corner of the screen, hit the Dropbox logo.
I did that.
No, I think he meant this one.
Yeah, my screen came up the same way.
I have a Dropbox logo down here. Click on it. That's when it says the Dropbox is full. You're out of space.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're having some technical difficulties this evening. Bear with us. Ed, you getting anywhere down there? Okay.
I would assume it's.
It is, because
I think it's the municipality, because we have the option of.
Mike hasn't cleaned the box out. He'll get held tomorrow.
Okay. Good evening, welcome to the Murrysville Planning Commission. You call the roll, please.
Mr. Lemke?
Here.
Ms. Hoy? Mr. Midal? Mr. Patrick?
Here.
Mr. Olszewski?
Here.
Mr. Kearns?
Here.
Mr. Levesque?
Okay, we have a quorum. We have minutes from April 12th. Any comments or corrections to the minutes as presented?
No comment.
We
No.
have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have no old business. New business tonight is,
You got your microphone on, Bob?
no, clicked it. The battery's dead in this. No, it was green.
This one's good too.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me now. New business tonight is consider authorization to advertise for a public hearing concerning the rezoning request of approximately 19 acres of land on Logan's Ferry Road from R1 to R3. This is down at the beginning of Logan's Ferry Road near the fire hall as you start up and pass, what is the name of that home down there?
The senior citizen.
The senior citizen home, yes.
Murrysville Rehab.
Murrysville Rehab, okay. All right, so I guess they've made a formal application, Mr. Morrison,
We have.
and so we have to schedule a public hearing for this.
Well, the question in staff's mind is, do we schedule the public hearing for the 19 and a half acres or for the, in addition, the 3 properties that it surrounds?
Yes.
Okay? Because we'll have to give notice for those.
So you're probably not going to be able to do it, have the meeting, the public hearing till next month.
The public hearing will be scheduled June 14th, next meeting.
Okay. If you all remember this, that 19 acres surrounds two little lots that are there. And so we're going to include those in with the application or the request for rezoning. Okay, so we need to make a motion to authorize advertising of this for June 14th, you said, Jim?
That's correct.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a acceptance of an application for major land development. This is SP 222. This is for a Dollar General out on Route 66, just north of the Borough of Delmont. It's presently Zone B. Is there someone here representing the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Please use the microphone, try to talk into it. Mr. Morrison, we do have a
Briefing?
on that somewhere.
That's correct.
Right?
The items that I'd like to bring to council's attention, although the comments are minimal, there are items in there such as the lighting, some of the studies, the environmental studies, that if desired, those need to be requested through waiver by the applicant. We have not received elevations yet of the buildings. I don't know if you have those with you or not.
I do not this evening. I can give you guys, I guess, a brief rundown of where we're at from our end of things, and kind of a little introduction of what we're proposing.
Could you identify yourself for the record?
Sure. My name's Mike Lasitis. I'm with Steckbeck Engineering. I'm the civil engineer who had prepared and submitted the plans and applications for the developer who could not be here tonight. They're at another meeting, so we had to kind of split forces. Otherwise,
Matt, let me highlight the items that I think at least need to be addressed from staff's perspective. Maybe they'll be covered in your presentation.
Sure.
There was the waivers for the environmental impact study, the elevations, the lighting, landscaping, and then there's some question of the traffic study. Although it did not meet the requirements of PennDOT through the TIS application, it does meet the threshold for the municipality's requirement for a traffic study. So the commission will have to address that.
Yep. I will start with, I guess, the architectural plans. In that regard, we typically start our process prior to the architect preparing the building drawings and things like that. So that would come along. We like to kind of go through the overall site design so that we're at a comfortable place that we know the building location itself isn't going to move, or any major components of the site design aren't going to change by the time the architect starts working on the actual building drawings and the building design itself.
Yeah, you understand we don't require complete architectural plans, so we need to know the facade, the elevations, how high it's going to be, what's going to be made out of. It's very preliminary information. We don't really get into the interior exits or any of the code issues.
Gotcha. Yeah, those will be coming along. I can request those for our next submission, just as a kind of more or less a draft building submission.
Do we have a site plan that we could put up?
Yes.
The prototype plans that Dollar General has, they should have that information. It shouldn't take much to get those to the level of showing us what the materials are in the outside color schemes, things like that.
Right. Yeah. That's absolutely something we can put together for our resubmittal. As far as the lighting plan goes, we also didn't have that information in time for our initial submission date. That'll be forthcoming with the next submittal as well. As far as the environmental impact study, that is one thing I was hoping to, I guess, discuss. And if that is something that the Planning Commission typically considers a waiver of and wouldn't have much heartburn with considering, that's something we would certainly like to submit a waiver in writing for that, if that's, that's something you guys typically do.
The information that's required for this particular application would be kind of minimal. I think you could address most of it probably in 1 or 2 pages. And in the sections that maybe, like an air quality study, maybe you can request a waiver of just that section.
Okay. Yeah, we can put, I guess, kind of an abbreviated study together. I'm not. Yeah, I would agree with you. I don't know how much detail you can get into on environmental impacts for something kind of that small and relatively simple, but we can put an abbreviated study together if that's something you guys would like to see. As you had mentioned, there's a traffic impact study that's currently in the works. That's something that we've gotten the scope dialed in, and they're completing the study at this point. So we will likely hold off on a resubmission until that information is available. We can consider it in the site design itself. If anything, yeah, it obviously would involve potential turn lanes. That's typically what they look at in a study such as that. So that will be information that we'll have on hand with our resubmittal, and will be considered and shown as necessary on the site plan itself with a resubmission. We did submit to all the other review agencies, such as the County Conservation District, County Planning Office, PennDOT, just to get those balls rolling that tend to take several months of review and feedback to confirm the site design acceptability. There were two items requested separately. Let's see if I can find them. Yeah, the Environmental Advisory Council and Recreation Board that were identified in the comment letter, are those separate entities to the township, that they have their own addresses that we submit to? How does that typically work?
You will not be required to submit to the Recreation Board, but the Environmental Advisory Commission, we will pass those along for their comment. So those will be forthcoming shortly.
Okay, so nothing we need to do on our end at this point. Okay. No. All right. Appreciate that clarification. And yeah, I can give you guys, I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at the site plan that was submitted or anything like that. Just a brief rundown. A plan here. I don't know how well you'll be able to.
I'll get it up on the screen for you. Could you get my screen up on the overheads, please? Can you put this up on the overheads? It is now. All right, thank you.
Okay, so it's up on the screen. I'll hold this up too. Turn around if you don't want to. But I'm guessing most of you are probably familiar with a Dollar General store. But what's proposed is a 10,640 square foot retail facility. There are 43 parking spaces shown in accordance with the zoning ordinance for that size retail store, which includes 2 handicap spaces for ADA requirements. The proposed store would utilize public utilities, public water, public sewer. We're currently coordinating those utilities with our plan submission concurrently. We don't have any feedback yet on those items, but we expect that to be forthcoming. There is obviously the access, I can start there. The access is directly to State Route 66, which, as I understand, is a relatively busy road. So we'll know more once we get the information on the traffic study. But obviously, safety is a major concern there when you're dealing with access to a busy street such as a main state road. So we kind of touched on that previously, but any impacts, like I said, will be addressed as the traffic study comes out. The parking lot itself is a bit of a unique shape to fit those 43 spaces in. There's a steep slope off to what is plan view right that we're trying to avoid, so we kind of shifted everything to the opposite side of the building as far as the additional parking spaces needed to meet that 43. So they kind of go around the radius of the access drive itself. We have a loading area and dumpster pad at the rear left of the building. There is one large delivery truck per week, so what you would consider like a big rig type truck. And every other delivery aside from that is like a smaller soda chip style truck, that shorter box truck style.
Where do they receive? What side of the building?
So it is, see it up there, it's basically the top left of the sheet. There's double doors at the back corner of the building and a concrete loading pad back there where the trucks would back into that area, unload and leave. And similarly to the refuse hauler, they just pull in to the dumpster area straight through and then back out.
Semi-delivery?
Yep, one per week is what it is. They typically try to time them to be off hours when the store is not open. Either early, most of the time early morning is the goal. There was a comment in the review that we had received. Now, from my understanding, does this include engineer comments or is this staff only? All right, so that's comprised of engineers' comments as well. There was one comment regarding the loading space. So as you can see there, the loading space is shown on the plan adjacent to some of the parking stalls themselves. Like I said, that with that one delivery per week with a large truck, that's kind of a common thing that we show on these type of plans. Typically doesn't create any issues. If need be or if desired, we can sign those for employee parking. That would help alleviate that concern of maybe people parking there and then getting parked in by a truck.
Well, we typically see that kind of delivery arrangement in more urban areas. I wouldn't call that an urban area. Are you limited by space that you can't provide a truck loading area?
A little bit. So one of the unique issues on this site is we were contacted by the county Parks and Recreation Office, and they have a desire to develop a bike path through what is the northwestern edge of this site, kind of parallel to Industrial Drive. They would need to construct a tunnel under State Route 66 for that bike path, and the tunnel construction, obviously, you have to go relatively deep under a state road like that. Construct a tunnel, so the grading required for that kind of extends a little bit into our site. Up to this point, we've been completely willing to work with them, and what we show is a proposed easement on our plan to allow them to construct that bike path per plans that they had sent us. They're really cursory early on plans. In talking to them, it sounds like this project could be 5-10 years down the road, perhaps.
No, it'll be a lot sooner than that. Funding's almost in place for it.
Gotcha. Okay. Just in talking to their engineer, I would imagine the permitting for something like that and the planning may take considerable amount of time to come to fruition. But in any case, we have a space reserved for that, which kind of constricts our ability to expand out in that direction. And like I said previously, there is a steep slope off to the other side of the site. It appears to be on the order of around 3-to-1 or possibly steeper. So we are a little bit limited in that capacity, which has kind of dictated the site design thus far.
So the grant of the easement there meets what they had requested?
Correct.
You
Yeah, well-
do not show their grading. Did they provide you with that grading plan, or did you
They
develop it?
did. So we decided not to show it on the plans that we had submitted. We have a version in-house where we can just turn on the grading and show it. Thought it was a little bit cluttered and may
Well,
possibly.
we want to make sure that your grading matches theirs.
Sure. I actually submitted that plan that shows their grading.
I
them.
saw it, yes.
If you guys want to see that, I can send that to you as
Well,
well.
I think, yeah, you can show it as a future grading area. I just want to make sure the easement, that they, I don't know whether they set up the easement or you set up the easement.
I believe we took their easement, if I'm not mistaken. Their engineer had sent us actual EWG or CAD files that we had basically just referenced into our plan. We didn't modify anything. So it should be their own requested easement.
Well, we just want to make sure that you're showing your property boundaries as the original tract, but this easement's already, I think, been granted, has it not?
As far as I know, no. I guess my understanding is they'd had some discussions with who would be the seller of the lot. Preliminarily, there was no paperwork or affirmation that I had received. So
Well,
in our discussions, it was
we would just like to make sure that there's no conflict
right.
with this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'd can certainly send you correspondence between us and the county, or copy the municipality in, if you guys want to kind of follow along in that process.
You have a grading plan in here, don't you?
Yeah, but they don't show the
Yeah,
the two together.
yeah, can you just add that in on that sheet?
Is that what I'm looking at on the drainage area plan? It's submitted, I mean, that looks,
No, there's a separate drawing that shows the tunnel underneath the road and the grading on either side.
It's possible that it was shown on the drain. I don't have them with me. It's possible that they were shown on the drainage area.
it's just a huge,
Yeah, that's all it is a large cut.
okay.
Yeah, it's shown on sheet 3.
That's the easement. That the grading lines themselves aren't shown, but
That drainage plan, it's shown on the drainage plan that's in the Dropbox.
But, yeah, that was what was developed by
Right.
the county.
Okay,
You're referring to slope easement for the bike trail?
I think he's referring to the grading
I
itself.
think that grading itself and the big culvert underneath 66.
Yeah, there's a separate plan in there.
Yeah, it's called drainage area plans.
Essentially, what we did was take our grading and kind of tie it into their proposed grading, which allows us to shift our layout as far down as we can without impacting what they need to do.
Well, what I guess I don't know on sheet number, I can't find the sheet numbers.
Bottom right.
On C30, which seems to be your grading plan, you have a crosshatched area here, but it doesn't show the grade, their proposed grading.
Right. Yeah, we can show that on the resubmitted plan. That would alleviate some concern. Not a big deal. My thought was it does create a little bit of clutter, especially the plan that we have shown being bid by contractors. I was hoping to avoid some confusion there. That was the intent of not showing it, just so that they don't get confused and think that they're responsible for any of that grading. I'm sure we can clarify it and make it clear when it comes time to bid.
What's with these sewer easements?
That's for their water line.
And this is
This one-
This is sewer easement here.
Yeah, that's for their sewer tap. Connect into the
It's a
sewer
gas,
main.
I
The
guess
water
the-
main, the water main's over here, the
Okay,
sewer
it's the
main's right
gas.
here, and
This
that
is
must be the
gas.
gas, yeah.
Yeah, so there are some utilities that are obviously going to have to be relocated as part of that major grading for the bike path. So I assume that's something that obviously the county and their designer are going to have to consider.
I
And
mean, how's that sewer gonna function? I mean, it's not gonna get down and back up.
You can't have
That's-
a
that's
trap,
kinda-
basically.
That's kind of, if I'm, yeah.
Years ago, there used to be a railroad tunnel through there. And there was a bridge over it for 66. When that sewer line was put in, they collapsed the bridge and filled in the void. So about where that sewer line is, that's where the original bridge was.
Okay.
And if you go further on down, if you look on the county GIS site, you'll see back behind this property at the end of Industrial Drive, you can see where the railroad bed was. Very, very prominent.
So if you see what I'm talking about, that sewer line it looks perfectly fine in the current condition, and when they build their site, when that bike trail goes through there, it's a giant cut. It's
Yeah.
20 feet.
Yeah.
So what's the depth of the sewer line?
Well,
With the negative 20 when it's done, when the bike trail goes through, it's going to be in the air. I don't know. I think that needs looked at for sure to come up with a viable solution that doesn't involve them rerouting that whole thing or something.
I would guess they're going to have to relocate that sewer main itself when they go to install that bike path.
Well, that sewer line goes all the way back. If you go back Industrial Drive, back there on the left, there's a big industrial facility. And that sewer line, the reason it's so deep is to get to that far point because Industrial Drive falls off as you go to the rear. But it's a good point, you know. You're going to have to do something with that.
Their grading looks to almost miss the existing line. The wing wall from that little bridge is going across it, but if it's as deep, how deep is it there along 66?
Well, it was probably 15 feet lower than the,
I mean, they might be above it with all that. I don't know.
I'm asking, what are the elevations?
well, I think that's,
I think the cuts for the bike path were around 12 feet. I think that the tunnel itself is supposed to be around 12 feet deep, I believe.
Yeah, the grading that I'm looking at on that plan shows your elevations there where you stop grading are 1204, and then it goes down to to 1184. So
yeah, so it's 16 feet deep.
my math says 20, but
Huh?
my math says 20, but
Oh, okay. You said, what was the number?
1204.
Oh, 1204, okay, yeah, it's 20 feet, yeah.
Or thereabouts. I don't know what there's the invert of that sanitary sewer line. Or what? Actually, they are going to have to I was not looking at the sanitary sewer. What am I looking at? That must be a storm drain line.
Yeah,
It's coming through there.
That runs through there as well.
The sewer they are going to have to relocate, but that's not going to solve the sewer floating in the air there.
Well, I don't really think it's this applicant's problem to solve that. He's not,
Well, it's just something, I mean, if they have a plan for the sewer, that's something we can work with. If they don't, I don't know what we can do.
yeah.
I guess you have to remember, no good deed goes unpunished.
Absolutely.
Okay, what else are you want to present us with, sir?
On that end of things, there was, just thought of now, there was a comment regarding, I guess, submitting storm sewer and stormwater calculations or reports to the owner of that system. Would anyone be able to tell me who owns that? I assume maybe it was private along Industrial Drive. I guess Industrial Drive is under private ownership. Is that municipality owned?
No, but I believe I believe it's been turned. I've heard rumors that it's been turned over to the county.
Okay. So, like to the county planning, that's who
I
we
would
should
send it to Jeff Richards, who was your contact for the drawing that he sent out.
Gotcha.
He's with Parks and Recreation.
Or what's his name? Jason Rigoni.
No, this is in the Recreation Department.
Yeah, but the road is would be under the control of the Industrial Authority, would it not? Not the Recreation Board. Yeah, and he's talking about they're connecting to the storm system that's over there on that road.
Yes.
Well, not necessarily connecting, but discharging.
It's discharging to it. Yeah,
I thought the property was under private ownership.
it is, but I understand the county's taking it over.
Okay.
Oh, as part of that process, you're saying?
Yeah.
Part of the bike, okay. Gotcha. I think that's all I have, unless anyone has any questions for me at this point or
Well,
like any
what's actually on our agenda here is to consider acceptance of this application. Is this application sufficiently complete?
Well, it depends on whether he can get the comments addressed by the end of May.
as far as all of those comments. At this point, I mean, I believe NPDS permit approval or
That's okay. I'm talking about the zoning and stormwater comments.
Well, on the elevation, some
Lighting
response
plan.
on the environmental.
yeah, I don't see an issue with getting that stuff to you guys by the end of the month.
Okay.
I think that's doable.
If you can't, then I'll have to ask you to execute a time waiver.
Sure.
Will
Yeah, that wouldn't be an
would
issue.
the applicant be willing to do that?
Yeah.
Look at your site plan again, sir. Can you get that back up on the big screen?
Yeah.
As I understand it, this tractor trailer, this semi that comes once a week, has to come in, swing to the right, and then back all the way around the building and come out again, and then reverse that to exit.
Correct.
Have you run turning movements on this?
Yes, there's should be a truck turning plan in that plan submittal at maybe C9.
That was one of the first things I thought of. It's page 10 of that PDF.
Page 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a rather typical movement for these sites. They're all laid out approximately the same all over the state. That prototypical building and parking type of design. That's commonly how it's handled.
On the screen, Bob.
But yeah,
Okay,
you are correct. They
I see.
pull into the site, make that right, and then back around to the living area itself.
Well, let me ask you this. At the entrance coming in here, are those raised landscape islands, or are they just painted out?
That's just line striping currently proposed.
check that. Aren't they supposed to have landscape islands at the end of parking rows?
Well, that was one of the items highlighted in the briefing.
Yep,
Yes.
yeah. Looks like we're gonna have to add, I guess, 2 landscaped islands on that edge. We'll have to push them outside of the truck maneuvering path itself.
Yes. Okay. All right, so do we want to, based on what we've heard here tonight, do we want to consider this a complete application or about to be a complete application, provided he has the material into us by, what, May 30th?
Be May 27th.
May 27th?
If not, execute a time waiver.
There's no downside for us, is there?
No.
I can see.
No,
No.
no.
I move we accept the application
Okay.
with the caveat it be submitted by May 27th.
There's-
Completed by May 27th.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I appreciate your time, everybody.
Okay, next we have an advisory on the conceptual plan for the development of 54.5 acres of land as a planned residential development on Town and Hilty Roads. This doesn't involve a gas well, does it?
No, it doesn't. It's nice to be here not involving the gas well. Good evening. My name is Bill Sittig, and I represent Paul Ficcione, who's the owner of the 54.5-acre tract that is being sought to change the zoning classification from R rural residential to R1. And Mr. Ficcione, as you will hear from him, one of the pleasant parts of this is he's not a developer. He's looking to actually build his home on this land and to live here. And so he's looking to develop property in a fashion that is suitable for him, but in a way that he can act in a minimal way make sense of the project. So it's not as though he's making a living on this or is this his retirement, but he's laid this out from the beginning as what is minimally needed to do what he seeks to do. I submitted a memo because if you look on the map, it's surrounded by disparate zones. If it becomes R1, it's RR, it's basically around, there's RR around it, and to the southwest, there's the park. So you just look at, this is something I've had to deal with for almost 40 years when you say, well, there's an island. But almost all zoning is an island, right? Is it Neville Island or is it Greenland? And so there aren't really any cases in the Commonwealth where you have 54.5 acres and it's been found to be a spot zone. It wouldn't even, arguably, if you found that there are characteristics, it wouldn't even have to be an R, or even could be a higher density R and not be a spot zone. So the whole concept of spot zone with 54.5 acres is really not applicable. But setting aside even the size of the parcel, the structure of the zoning ordinance itself would indicate that this property should be an R1. The ordinance, and speaking of gas wells, we looked at this a lot on the western side of the municipality. Those are largely where you don't have the infrastructure. And in fact, whenever you look at the descriptions in the memo that I did, if you look at the RR district, it specifically says they're environmentally sensitive areas and portions, and we'll describe the tracts, and there are large areas that are environmentally sensitive that we're going to be able to preserve. But the key to it is in the RR, it says that are not otherwise suitable for development at higher densities. And that essentially says where you don't have the infrastructure, whether it's roadways, but typically it's sewage, right? It's sanitary. And in this case, we do. And I think, one of the things that we talked about actually in the court cases is the infrastructure expands and you have sanitary. Happens in, towns. Certainly the town I lived in, I had septic, and when sewage came along, then of course the developers came along, and that's what happens, and that's how the ordinance is set up. So the R1 is very low. It's a very low density district, and the basic difference between them, and I think the plans that we submitted, Paul had prepared an RR plan, and he showed that he could only get 21 lots total on 54.5 acres. And as you'll see, no matter how you lay it out, there's a significant amount of road frontage, which is what, dictates what your basic lot costs are going to be. And in the R1, as we're showing, whether it's a PRD, which is limited to the same number, in the R1, it's 28 lots you can fit. So we're looking at a density that's, basically there's going to be 2 acres per lot, 2 acres per home. Now, a lot of that's going to be open space, and what we'll show in the plans that we did is that would ideally probably going to come in with a PRD, allow some flexibility on lot size, but Paul would actually like to have a little greater lot frontage, and it lays out that instead of 150 feet of frontage in the R1, the preference would be to have about 160 feet of frontage. So when you talk about 150 or 160 feet of frontage, that gives you an idea of how substantial the lots are, how substantial the homes are. And I know in looking, and having talked with developers in town, usually coming in to do something that's higher, more intense than an R1. R1 is very difficult to make work in Murrysville, but this actually does work. So, we're hoping that the Planning Commission and Council will see fit that this is not only appropriate to be zoned because it is suitable for higher density, it's rather minimal higher density, but it's the minimum that Paul needs to be able to do what is really going to be, I believe, on a scale of this size, an unprecedented development in the municipality. So that's sort of the overview. I'd like Paul to give you the personal view of what he's trying to do, and then our engineer will go over the plots. I know we're not bound by this, obviously, but the other thing that Paul has done with the initial plan and with these plans, you'll see, even at this conceptual stage, he's devoted a lot of commitment. There's a lot of commitment in engineering to investigate what can be done, which on a legislative act is a pretty serious commitment, and it shows, I think, how serious Paul is about doing the right thing. So, Paul, you could tell your story.
Very good. Thanks, Bill, for the introduction. I'd just like to thank everyone for their time and consideration this evening. It's a pretty convoluted story on how I got to this point, and I'll spare you all of the details. I'm almost a 30-year Murrysville resident. Just sold a house in the Fair Oaks community in June of last year. I'm also a business owner, have an organization in Westmoreland County, number 3, off of Mellon Road, where we make real high-end scientific instrumentation, accessories for electron microscopes that play into both the life and physical science area. So being a resident of Fair Oaks, I do a fair amount of long-distance running. And from my driveway to the J.H. Walder Reserve was exactly a 10-kilometer loop. And I always loved the property in the local area. There was one time one of Murrysville's police officers stopped and asked me if I was okay. I said, I'm just out here enjoying the solitude on a Saturday or Sunday morning. Well, work is convoluted. There's an ex-wife that was involved in this situation. So back in 2013, at the end of the financial crisis, we just decided to buy 30 acres in Murrysville, possibly to pass it on to the children at some point with no real intention. So unfortunately, the marital situation changed about 5 years ago, and in that process, I did an awful lot of soul searching. Where do I want to be as a residence? What do I want to do with a business? Do I want to live in the city of Pittsburgh or a place like Friendship or Shadyside? And the short answer is I made a decision. I want to live in my forever home in Murrysville. So through the course of activities, I was fortunate enough to gain another 23 acres from Betsy Aiken. So that's the 30 original plus the 23 yields the 54. So in going through the process of wanting to build a forever home in Murrysville, I looked at all of the developments that are going in, talk with all of the players, and basically I want to build a very nice size masonry 3-bedroom ranch. And the organizations that are developing have set floor plans, which basically I didn't want, with prices that started between $700,000 and $800,000, and I thought that's just way too much for something that I really don't want. So about a year ago, I started with CEC and began to investigate the possibilities for the site. Made a change earlier this year to Anthony's organization, and as Bill indicated, for this to make sense, we need to increase the density somewhat, but also, as Bill said, it's beautiful property. There's a lot of green space. All of the lots open onto some environmentally sensitive areas that really enhance the neighborhood. And in doing this, I want to do it out of respect for the environment, out of respect for Murrysville, and really be able to create a community adjacent to MCP that has a high quality of life for anyone that resides in the development. So with that, unless there are any questions, I'll thank you for your time and turn it over to Anthony.
Go ahead, Anthony.
These two pretty much hit on most of the points here, but as they're saying, we're looking to change it from RR zoning to R1 PRD so that we can fit these lots. And the reason we want to do the PRD is so that we can cluster these lots a little closer together and leave more common open space for everyone to enjoy the area, so that everyone has access to. There's 5 or 7, I think 12 total streams throughout this area, and then, as Paul was saying, it's right across the road from the.
You can pull that out. Hold it in your hand.
And as Paul was saying, it's right across the street from the community park, and they can add a walking trail, bike connection. Residents can enjoy the streams and wooded area that would remain in its natural state there around those homes by being able to cluster them closer together as a PRD there.
Okay. Now, assuming that the municipality would grant this rezoning request, I have some doubts as to some of the lots that you are showing under your conventional plan as to whether or not the municipality would consider them viable lots. You know, I'm looking at, like lot 25, 26. The grading looks a little steep on those. And you have to, what we make everybody do is show what the grading would be like and whether it would be feasible or not. So, you know, I'm jumping ahead here, but I'm just pointing out, want to point out to you, I don't want you to go down the wrong path here and find out that what you think you're getting is a 28 lots, you wind up with 20 or 24 or something like that may throw the project to where it's not feasible, because you've got a lot of pavement you're putting in here.
Yes.
It costs a lot of money. And so you're probably going to have to think about phasing this in some sort or another, because all that has to be bonded up front. I'm saying that to you because you say you're not a developer. I don't know what your expertise is in this, but it gets expensive.
We happened to be talking about that. He said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, I feel a lot more comfortable, especially with interest rates in the environment, if you could phase it. So one of the challenges is Paul's looking at his home at the very end of the development. So he's to order to live where he wants to live. But that's a choice he's going to have to make. But that's a point well taken. There's a lot of road.
There's a lot of road there.
It's going to take some time to absorb it. I mean, it's going to be money that's not. It's expensive money sitting there. So
I think my initial reaction was similar to yours, Bob, that if you're building all the same amount of road for the same amount of lots, I don't know that I would put myself through the
PRD
hassle of going through the PRD process. I mean, truly. I mean, I understand it. You might get a couple. You might save a couple of these streams, but I don't even know if they meet the criteria. It looks like they got. Surely the beginning parts of those have under 100 acres of drainage area, so you could presumably make them disappear. I mean, I know you're trying to do the opposite of that and preserve them, but there's a lot of extra things you're going to have to go through for the PRD process. It's something to consider, for sure.
Well, the other thing too is, even though the stream is there, it still could be, you can create a conservation easement through there of which is still part of the lot. And like you said, it doesn't change things that much. And we always have the bugaboo, Bill, as you know, that's always raised is the, once we rezone it, then anything flies, and we can't do contract zoning to say this is what you're going to do. But and quite frankly, I don't know how the powers that be in the community would consider rezoning. Although I wonder, when you look at our zoning map, so much of the municipality is this vast green forest out there, which means it's never going to be touched. I don't know that's where the future is. But it's a very conservative community, and particularly given its proximity to the park. I don't know. Following up on Chris's comment, maybe the best thing to do is just to leave it as is and develop it as is. I don't know that you're going to get that much more out of it.
Well, we're showing R1, straight up R1 PRD. What you're not seeing is the CEC package, which is the existing RR, which is 21 lots max. So to your point, this is my point to Paul. R2 gives you a lot more leeway. You probably get 33, comfortable, very sizable lots, but we have a challenge getting to R1 here with this map for the reasons that you're stating. But even in this case, and you can see those contours and streams to work around them, there's a challenge to get to 28, 21. This is what you get into. You're going to see it when somebody has land that's not going to be a farm or going to be, developed. You have 50 acres. What are they going to be?
What was it? Was this ever farmed? Doesn't look like it much good for.
I don't know the history. I know that Bessie at one point had. I know at one point Betsy had horses there. There's fencing on a pasture land. It's pretty heavily wooded for most of the property.
It looks like it's suitable for goats. You know,
One of the things that that I did is I'm a mechanical engineer. I graduated from the University of Pittsburgh in 1978, and I always say that I've never seen a design on paper that doesn't work. It's until you build something and you hold it in your hands and you see it come to fruition. So last fall I had CEC go in and stake the center line of the road, and then Fran Delicio from Danmar went in with a bobcat and mowed it. We made sure we didn't take any trees down, but that way we could visualize the road network and look at the lots. And I think if you took the opportunity to go out there and walk the property, it's pretty easy to see. The lots are very nice. I'm not nearly as concerned about the slope after seeing them correctly. Quite frankly, I think there may be some areas on the topography map or errors on the topography map. But it is really beautiful property.
yes, I'm sure.
So what, I remember John had addressed that. He looked at an RR layout, is that right?
He did.
And how many lots were there?
It was 21 minus, and we don't know what the minus was because we had a preliminary meeting with the DEP on the 23rd of December, and the end result of that is they wanted all the infiltration testing done for the entire site because we hadn't taken into consideration the stormwater situation. And the conversation ended up, well, I would need to spend $200,000 or $300,000 on engineering to see the 21 lots go down to 21. And basically the answer was that was the risk that you need to take. It's like, not so fast. We need to make sure that we get the lot quantity up to a point where it does make sense.
Well, you know, you're certainly free to file an application for rezoning. I think everybody would give it its due weight, and you know, you have some decent arguments, in my opinion, to put forth. Whether they're enough to sway the powers that be is another story. Rezoning is always a crapshoot. You have any other questions or information for us?
I actually do, and I'll, plead my ignorance in this case. The vision has been these very nice, large lots, lots of green space, spacing in between the lots, looking out into backyards where you wouldn't see another house. But I did hear the number 33 come up versus the 28. And even though the vision has been what I just stated, there's always the situation where I would consider going up from the 28 if it would make more sense. Is that something that we should entertain?
Yeah, I think
I'm not sure I understand your comment.
basically going to the R2, because there are concerns about losing the lots and is it feasible. And I think what you may not be picking on tonight is there's going to be a lot of resistance to R1. I think, and just hearing the comments and the sensitivity, the park is a big factor.
Mm-hmm.
May be thought of as a spot, but it's sacred, open space. Even $1 million homes are homes, and that green area is largely open space. But it's a challenge that at each cycle, the municipality, as the infrastructure improves, is going to have to deal with. I can say from a legal standpoint, I don't have any problems making the case out that, geez, at least has to be zoned this dense. You don't typically see, there's not that much of a market for this size of lots. It's really not very dense, one dwelling unit for every 2 acres. So, but you're dealing with the framework. That's the framework, is that sea of green. That's the reality. So the short answer is, we're gonna have a hard time getting the R1, I think, so.
So you want to rezone it, from an RR, just to make sure everyone's clear, to an RR, to an R1, to allow the PRD.
Well, we think that's the way it's gonna go,
Okay,
not necessarily. We did both just straight up R1 and the PRD. The PRD gives a little flexibility, but it's the basic density. Paul's probably not gonna get to 28, probably gonna get in the 26 range. And that's why if we were zoned and there were 33 on there and you go through and you get down to 28,
yeah.
he realizes that it's a tough proposition to even do it with a 28. He's probably going to lose a few lots. But it is, in a way, it's not, you're going to come in, what we're seeing on the production homes is somebody coming in with 300 acres. And they're going to move a lot of dirt. They're going to plow it. They'll relocate streams and do what they're going to do. And, this, to the extent, and this is, my pitch to the governing body, to the extent that you're going to do it piecemeal, and break that up, custom homes with really rural character lots, this is a better way to do it than with a production home where you're going to move a lot of dirt, to pay for that. But
What are you envisioning in terms of the amount of earth moving that has to happen? Are you looking at a minimal earth moving, or?
He would like to move as little as possible to keep the natural features of the area, obviously. And the whole reason for wanting to go to the PRD as opposed to just regular R1, which is possible to do, it would help to maintain a lot of the green space and ensure it stays there. Also, the lots that they'd be asking for would be 30,000 square feet as opposed to the 1 acre so it's really not that much smaller of a lot, but it helps to ensure more green community space where they can put a trail that connects to the park. And
I think the problem you get into is when you're laying out the conventional plan, you're stuck with having to show that the lots, as Bob mentioned, are buildable. So even though what you're really wanting to do is to minimize the amount of earth moving and so forth. So it's a catch-22. You're caught between a rock and a hard place, so to speak.
right.
So, I'm not sure how you handle that.
well, you're hitting on it. The challenge is going to be if Paul gets to the R1 and you ostensibly have this high 20s, 28 lots, then you start costing it out. One thing we know is it's not going to be above 28. So you're taking that 28 minus, and you're by definition going to move less dirt, because every lot you lose, it's just going to be that sliding scale. So while Bob's absolutely right, you can't guarantee what you're going to get, but you can be pretty much assured you're not going to be able to move much dirt and to build that length of road in the frontage. So I tell my clients that I get to see more developments than they ever do in their lives, because I'm doing 100 of them. They're lucky to get to 10. So my measure is, what do I see that works? When Paul sent me this, it's like, that's a lot of road and not a whole lot of lots. So even if you're not moving any dirt, you're not even putting in a lot of sewers, it looks like a stretch. But with that, okay, if you're going to take a site and we're going to try to develop it, this is the guy that wants to do it. If he doesn't succeed, actually what I've told him is, Paul, what about doing 3 curb cuts and putting 3, my last 2 homes were on gravel driveways. I don't get, you should do flag lots and be really creative and have your, 5 acre, right? But when you put in sewage and you put in hardscape, it's crushing to put in, that infrastructure. So what I see from what my clients bring to me, and some of them have been in this town, I think Paul has a lot of work to do to get his costs to be able to deliver those 20, high 20 lots. Now, if he doesn't, what do you end up with? And that's what, council's going to have to look at. Well, I have an R1 that's really not doable. Okay. I mean, you're not going to come in and, you're not going to do townhouses. I mean, you can't do anything else. So,
I guess the situation is, timing is everything. 5 years ago, when you were looking at 2% money, now you're looking at, who knows what the cost of money is
Exactly,
going to be.
yeah.
That's the killer.
that's the absorption in doing it. If he could do, put his house on one leg of that and build 10 lots and, if it worked and, but.
Well, I think right now the ball's in your court, whether you want to proceed with a formal application or not. We're just trying to be generous here in our comments. We have a situation right now where somebody's come in for a piece of ground that's, what's that zoned?
R2.
R2. I think they started out with close to 50 lots, and now they're down to the low 30s.
Have you evaluated the environmental sensitive areas
Back to use,
in relationship
right.
to the layout of those lots?
they're scrapping the PRD, aren't
I believe it was CC who actually did the environmental assessment of the site, and we do have all the stream classifications, and
Yeah.
they walk the site,
They were
wetlands, stream.
I'd be more interested in things like steep slopes and poor soils that are going to trip you up when you lay that out to try to maximize the lots under the R1.
Oh, yeah. We did run the soil survey just to see what soils are out there. I don't recall off the top of my head what soils were there, but it's not anything that,
Steep slopes?
there are some steep slopes, yes. There are definitely some steep slopes, but nothing that we can't build around.
So when you see a parcel like that, I mean, Bob's mentioning this piece of property up here off of Cherry Drive, and they have the same problem in the sense that you're saying there isn't a huge market for the 1.5 to 2 acre kind of parcels. The other side of it is are there enough people that would be looking at like a 5 acre parcel? You don't need many of those people, but that's wow, I know
It's your engaging personality.
electrifying. But so I guess that's the rationale you have to go through is what makes the best plan. I don't know.
And we can certainly do a grading exhibit showing what the grading would be, doing straight R1 versus the R1 PRD and how it would fit with the site. That's not a...
It gets down to, if you look at, larger state lots, they're not on, my lot in Marshall where it was in Seward. I didn't have curbs or stormwater. I had it was a cow path. It's not even, I didn't even have a right of way. And that's what you get. You get, larger parcels that have a driveway onto the street. If you build the frontage now, these lots, you're looking at 150 feet of frontage. It's a $250,000 lot. So is there any market for even a $250,000 lot, let alone, so if you go to 5 acres and you have to have street frontage. So that's what I'm saying. Whenever you get, I think he's at the very, very top end of, maybe beyond the top end, frankly, of municipal grade street, public street frontage.
So I just bring your attention to like Sign-In Farms. I mean, look at that situation. They haven't sold very many lots in there, if I'm aware. That's tough.
That's, Paul's talked with all, he's talked with Reach and all these guys. So again, his heart's into doing it. He loves the land. He has a vision for the land. To do it, I don't think anybody that sees these layouts is saying, he has any cushion in lot size or street frontage. It's a big leap now. And, the RR just doesn't work. I don't really know what happens because it puts, if my clients come to me and they say I have 50 acres, it's really not an, what can I do with it? I can't do an RR. Your zoning board won't grant me any variances. It's like I have to file a validity challenge because there's a lot of land there that has sewers that you're saying I can't really develop. I have to keep it fallow. That's a problem. That's a problem in land use, and that's when you see the same thing happen in Franklin Park on the other side of 79. You get, Blackburn Heights and those neighborhoods which are a lot denser than this. So this is a chance to pick off before you get inevitably what's going to be. If we as a society are insisting on hardscape roads with, to have your snow plowed by the municipality, you're not going to have 2 and 3 acre lots with 200 feet of frontage. When you go to lend, it's 4 or 5 to 1 house to lot.
What's the situation with utilities in that area? Sewage and so forth.
Sewage is on Farm Road. We extended the sewers to the park.
You did?
Yes.
So they could get sewage then?
That's the sort of the catch-22. The park allows you to get the sewage, but it's the park. So.
But still, you still have a lot of sewer line to put into each of these properties.
A lot of water line.
Yeah.
Water line.
Underground utilities.
Well, if there's nothing else, why go forth and multiply? We'll see what you get.
All right. Thanks for the feedback and the sanity check for Paul. So.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
Mr. Morrison, do we have any other business?
No, sir.
Anything in the pipeline?
A couple of things starting to sprout up. I have a call on Friday to talk about the truck garage property across from Blue Spruce. They want to put it up for sale.
I'm sorry.
Truck property, corner is Trafford and 22.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They want to demolish the 2 buildings there and actively market that parcel.
That's in business, right? That's where somebody was going to build not an Aldi's, the brothers.
Yeah, it was like a whole,
Okay.
it was a out-of-state company. They contacted us about it, backed out of it.
Municipality holds a key parcel in that assemblage down there, and they need the municipality to play ball there in order to market the property.
And then we have Tommy's Car Wash is coming back, or they.
Haven't seen anything from Tommy's lately. They're still working on it.
And I understand that the bank property is going to be
A car wash?
a car wash, so we won't have any problems with dirty cars in the municipality.
No. Hopefully they'll have a special on Monday and Wednesday instead of just Tuesday.
I don't know.
Bank, the old Standard Bank.
Yeah.
Edgo or Giant Eagle
Yeah.
acquired it.
Anything else?
Nah, not right now.
Okay. All right, nothing else? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Move second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.